I'm Felix Maltsev from Patriarshy Dom Tours, and today we continue our exploration of Moscow with the neighborhood known as Chistye Prudi, literally clean ponds. Although the territory not always had got this name. In the past, the name had the opposite meaning, stinky ponds. And the reason we can find in the name of the main street of the neighborhood, Мясницкая, Butcher Street. In 15th, 16th, 17th centuries, that was the territory of Moscow slaughters. And all the wasters, well, you can imagine the smell, were thrown away into the ponds. 1703, the neighborhood was given by Peter the Great to his closest friend, Alexander Menshikov, as a gift. And yet, it's very difficult to say, was it a generosity or a wicked joke of the emperor? However, Menshikov, on arrival, smelled the ponds and ordered soldiers to clean up the territory in 24 hours. The job was done, and the next morning, the ponds were baptized as clean ones. So thus the name has got an element of Russian history. By the way, Menshikov had left a very interesting trace in the neighborhood. In a small side street called Arkhangelsky, Archangel, which goes to south from the ponds, we have got a beautiful Baroque church, officially named the Church of Archangel Gabriel, but colloquially called Menshikov Tower. That's the story of Menshikov's enormous pride. Menshikov backgrounds were amazing. Peter the Great had no social prejudice and elevated to the government people of various social backgrounds, had selected Menshikov literally from mud. In childhood, he had been a street thief, and by one of the legends, little Menshikov tried to steal a purse from little Peter, but was caught and beaten, and then the boys became friends. However, Menshikov did not respect very well-known restriction which prescribed Muscovites not to construct anything taller than Kremlin Bell Tower, 81-meter high. Well, Menshikov demonstratively wanted to show he did not care and ordered to build the church as tall as possible, which was done. By the way, for building the church, he employed world-famous Swiss architect Domenico Trezzini. And when Trezzini signed a contract for 30,000 rubles, at that time very significant sum of money, and presented Menshikov with the draft, Menshikov stole the paper, the next morning fired Trezzini, and passed these papers to a Russian architect Zarudny, paid him 3 rubles, and the church was built. The legend said that the next morning the lightning destroyed the top layer of the church and reduced it to the prescribed size. As a matter of fact, the lightning which really had hurt the church of Archangel Gabriel happened only 1723, 16 years after the consecration, but who cares? Well, finally God intervened and stopped that disgrace. Not far away from Menshikov Tower, at the beginning of Chistye Prudny, Clean Ponds Boulevard, we have got a monument to a celebrated Russian playwright and diplomat, Alexander Griboyedov. Although I must warn you, the look of this statue has very little doing to the look of the man himself. Griboyedov in life was a short height and short-sighted man, wearing glass with huge dioptry, but we can face a bronze, handsome, romantic hero looking at us. Well, most of all, the appearance of the statue reminds of a famous Russian actor Tsarev, who starred in Griboyedov's famous play Uitsvo on the stage of Mali Theatre in Moscow, 1950s-60s. However, Griboyedov is associated with one of the most interesting, one of the most popular Russian traditions, which today seems to be a native part of Russian culture: tea ceremony. Today, almost every Russian, not myself, I'm a coffee man, but all the rest, used to drink tea. But as a matter of fact, tea is not a native Russian stuff. Tea had entered, well, just the highest level of Russian high society at the beginning of the 17th century during the reign of Michael Romanov. But it was so expensive. Well, just imagine, tea had been transported by camels from China the whole way, months. It was so expensive that only the royal family and richest Russian boyars and merchants could afford it. For the rest of the people, once a year, on the first Sunday after Easter, tea was set free in Red Square, but that was it. Griboyedov, who had married a Georgian princess, desired with his father-in-law to organize plantations of Indian tea on the southern slope of Caucasian Range. Insulation was quite good for it, but sad irony was that cultivation of tea in Georgia started already after Griboyedov's early death. Being a professional diplomat, 1829, Griboyedov was killed by Islamic fanatics in Tehran. He had been just appointed an ambassador to Iran. Tea, by the way, is marked with the other interesting object in the neighborhood. If we turn from the boulevard to Myasnitskaya Street, just in 2-3 steps, we can see a house, a beautiful house in the Chinese style. The famous tea shop established at the end of the 19th century by Moscow merchant Sergei Perlov. Perlov had employed two Russian architects of German backgrounds, Klein and Gippius, to build in the center of Moscow the house which most of all looks like Chinese decorative design with a little pagoda on top, painted in beautiful bright colors. And 1896, when coronation of Emperor Nikolai II was on the way in the Kremlin, and Moscow was visited for participating coronation by Chancellor of Chinese Empire, Perlov bribed the city police to organize Chinese convoy along Myasnitskaya, and then Moscow police officer had to point at the tea shop and said, "Well, Your Excellency, look, what a wonderful Chinese house." Well, and His Excellency looked and said, "Yes, very interesting example of German architecture." Well, therefore we can see that not necessarily our wishes come true. Sometimes history is very ironic.